Welcome to the Politics of Peterborough podcast. I'm your host, Dave Adcock. In the coming weeks, voters will head to the polls in the 2026 local elections to decide who should represent them on the council for at least the next 2 years and help shape the city's future. In this mini-series of episodes, I'm speaking with representatives from each of the political parties currently represented on Peterborough City Council to understand their priorities, their ideas for the city, and how they believe the council should be run as we approach local government reorganisation. To make it easy for you to compare the parties, each representative in this series is being asked the same core set of questions: their party's vision and priorities, local government reorganisation, the council's finances, the local plan, housing and growth, and their record on the council. We'll then finish with some party-specific questions on the upcoming election. In this episode, representing Reform UK is the party's only representative currently on the council, Councillor Andrew O'Neil. Councillor O'Neil, welcome to the Politics of Peterborough.
Hi Dave, good morning. Thank you for the invitation to take part in this.
So let's start big picture. What's your party's clear vision for Peterborough until the completion of local government reorganisation if you were to make a significant number of gains in May?
Our clear vision is to take care of our residents by supporting them by resolving local issues. We believe that residents feel that their concerns and local issues have been ignored by successive administrations at the council in favour of political grandstanding with vanity projects such as the Hilton Hotel, the fountains in Cathedral Square, and most recently the Signet Bridge, colloquially referred to as the Bridge to Nowhere, that will link Fletton Quays to the embankment. Originally, that was costed at £6.3 million, and now that's been revised upwards by £2 million, so an extra £2 million on that.
What would the noticeable difference be for the residents of the city if your party were in a leadership role after the election?
I think what we'd see is a return to professional, serious politics that puts residents' needs first. We would end the childish behaviour seen in full council meetings where the current Labour minority-led coalition mock questions from councillors from other parties in attempts to score points. This sort of mirrors the behaviour of the previous Conservative-led administration. That is unprofessional behaviour that undermines the work of the council and I think personally brings local government politics into disrepute. But the most important thing is to hold the executive to account. I do not believe that that is happening at present with Labour. The executive, the officers, are there to implement the demands of councillors who are, after all, the elected representatives for their wards. We would do this by greater scrutiny at committee and council meetings, working in a more proactive role with the chief executive, monitoring officer, the legal counsel, and directors. We as the councillors of the administration would be calling the shots, so to speak. This, of course, would lead to greater transparency and trust from residents, I feel. Residents would see improvements in the services they desire, repair of infrastructure, be that potholes, grass verges, removal of graffiti, and reduction in antisocial behaviour. Illegal parking issues would be resolved as we would ensure that the relevant authority, council directorate, DVLA, police, etc., would be required to act rather than denying responsibility. In short, greater accountability would result.
What is your party's top priority after the election and how would you go about achieving it?
Obviously, we would need to appoint a leader and cabinet members and have all brought up to speed with the existing work of the council. Unnecessary expensive capital projects such as the bridge, what's known as the Bridge to Nowhere, the Signet Bridge, would be reviewed and if deemed necessary, cancelled. Our councillors would set about resolving the issues highlighted to them by their ward residents during the pre-election period. We would use the council's media relations department to keep our residents updated of progress using various social media platforms.
So last week we discovered that Peterborough's bid to be the UK City of Culture in 2029 had unfortunately not been successful. Despite that, were your party behind the bid and what do you think is the city's strongest cultural selling point?
Well, Reform UK, we are a newcomer party to the council here at Peterborough and our priorities have been listening to residents in Fletton and Woodston ward, building the casework profile for the ward while scrutinising the workings of the council. Our respective party branches, and we have two across Peterborough, have been training our candidates in preparation for them joining the council after the May 7 election and us forming a new opposition group. Of course, we would support a UK City of Culture bid in principle. Unfortunately, Peterborough has lost out, as you mentioned, but do we need to be bestowed such a title in order for us to be proud of Peterborough's heritage? I would argue not. We are a small city However, we do have much to be proud of from our 10th century Anglo-Saxon heritage, from when the area was Meadhamstead. Sculptures such as the header stone and the foundations that remain under the crossing and the south transept of the cathedral, which dates back to the 12th century. We've also got a museum with a collection that holds many important artefacts and works of art, which have been amassed over about 130 years, and many objects of national and international importance, such as the Jurassic marine reptiles, finds from prehistoric and Roman Peterborough, and Napoleonic craftwork, etc., created by prisoners at Norman Cross.
What do you think specifically could be worked upon to improve the city's chances for 2033?
In short, a reworked justification for the award, highlighting the things that I've just discussed.
The government is currently pursuing local government reorganisation, with Peterborough City Council due to merge with at least part of, if not multiple, neighbouring district councils. Firstly, what's your party's view on the idea as a whole?
There are potential benefits, but also pitfalls. A bigger combined budget would allow for world-beating amenities, and sorry to get that buzzword thing in there. A good example would be an Olympic-sized swimming pool, something which parochial politicians have not been in favour of.
What are the potential benefits of LGR, and how would your party ensure that they are realised?
Multiple councils merging into one would see a reduction in headcount in the executive, the officers. So there would be just one CEO. Currently, Peterborough's CEO is paid £211,000 per annum. So if 7 merges to 1, you can see that there would be quite a big saving there in terms of salary. There'd also be streamlining, I imagine, within the staff. And my understanding is that the combined authority would have a maximum of 100 councillors. And currently, just Peterborough City Council alone has 60 councillors. So there would be probably fewer councillors per ward, or wards would probably cover a larger geographic area. So there'd be savings there. The work in achieving this would be carried out by the executive, the officers and staff employed by the council. We would work closely with the executive and the Section 151 officer to enable as smooth a transition as possible. But we, as the majority group of councillors in this scenario, would direct the process and expect the managers to manage the process.
On the flip side, what are the potential risks to the city, and how would your party aim to mitigate them?
One risk, we are told, is that the council tax would rise for residents. It has been said that Peterborough has lower council tax bands than other neighbouring authorities, so this is something to be aware of. Local government reorganisation is being introduced by government, which is a Labour government, so that shouldn't be forgotten. Other risks would be centralisation of decision-making, which may seem more remote to residents, and this could lead to local issues becoming less of a priority or receiving less support than issues that affect the wider area. To mitigate this, though, we would want to encourage councillors to raise local points at full council meeting, and this should be received professionally without the put-downs that have become commonplace in Peterborough's council meetings.
The council is still £500 million in debt with depleted cash reserves, but will find itself with a significant increase in core funding from central government after the fairer funding review. Where does your party believe the focus should be for that additional funding?
The fairer funding, which I believe is approximately £10 million over the next 2 years, has helped the council to balance its budget, but it shouldn't be seen as spare cash that can be used at will. Despite the extra funding, council tax has still been raised by the Labour-led administration to the maximum amount, 4.99% this year, that it can be without holding a local referendum. Many residents, I think, feel that they continue to pay more in council tax but see little or no improvement in services with no end to those increases in sight. So that, I think, would be the focus.
Many residents feel they continue to pay more council tax but see little improvement in services with no end in those increases in sight. How would your party ensure residents get better value for money from the council?
Prioritising local issues and infrastructure over unnecessary corporate and capital investments in projects such as the new bridge, the Signet Bridge, with careful attention to the revenue. For example, the fountains, which were maintained at great cost from the revenue budget, eventually leading them to being switched off. So I would like to examine the contracts also awarded for adult social care and child social care to see if there is any profiteering in those contracts, without, of course, reducing the services provided. Simply put, can we get better value from those we are awarding contracts to? Is the council simply paying out on overinflated invoices? So these are things that I would like to be able to scrutinise.
Some of the financial decisions made by the council in recent years have been questioned by the public, loaning £15 million to a developer for the construction of the Hilton Hotel, and the attempts to sell the building which houses the Bharat Hindu Samaj are two such examples. What would your party do to improve transparency and rebuild public trust in the council's financial decision-making?
The issue of selling the building currently used as the Bharat Hindu Samaj, of course, will result in closure of the one Hindu temple in Peterborough, which serves 18,000 Hindus. Closing this, I think, is likely to have serious ramifications for community relations. And it could potentially be viewed as being contrary to the community cohesiveness that is often extolled by the leader of the council. The reason given for the sale of the building was to achieve the best possible price. However, the Labour-led administration have been quite happy very recently to sell off the TK Maxx building at a loss. So it's therefore a bad decision, in my opinion, and I would want to re-examine the processes and procedures adopted behind the decision, possibly reversing it. So in terms of improving transparency and rebuilding trust in the council's financial decision-making, I would be working with the chief executive and the S151 officer to bring down the debt gearing, the loan-to-asset value ratio, which is currently 91%. Capital projects would likely be put on hold, but not cancelled, until costs can be controlled. I would wish to refrain from transferring money from the revenue account to the capital account. This is something that should have been factored in and seen by all in the business cases for these capital projects. So we shouldn't be moving money from the revenue budget to the capital budget if we've properly scrutinised business cases for capital projects. So such practice should form part of good governance, I think. Can cost savings be made within the council? A good example where savings could be made potentially is within IT expenditure. I think some councils have managed to bring down the IT costs for software and things like that. Reducing costs by scrapping needless green initiatives would also be an area to address. Things like cancelling renewable energy programs and switching to all electric fleets of vehicles is something to look at. I think Durham Council has managed to save £25 million by cancelling electric vehicle upgrades and heat pump installations. And Kent County Council, I think, has saved £32 million by cancelling green energy efficiency upgrades and a planned office move. Peterborough, of course, recently spent £53 million on a new set of offices. So other councils have saved, I think, over £43 million by reducing spending on green initiatives. So those are things that could be areas that could be looked at. And also engaging with our residents via public consultation on suggested capital spending programs such as bridges is something that we would do. If the public were not in favour of a project, we would not invest their money in it. Quite simply, we are their elected representatives.
Under the current local plan in development, there are significant housing or industrial development sites earmarked for the outskirts of Castor, Wittering and Stanground. How would your party balance housing and economic growth with the protection of green spaces?
Firstly, I would protect and retain the green spaces that we have within the city centre. Our parks and allotments, including the green backyard, would not be placed on the asset disposal list. These are vital for our community, and they've got innumerable benefits. Benefits to physical and mental health, via their recreational use, retaining biodiversity, and also helping to mitigate the effects of increasingly hot summers and heat waves. Things that occur with changes in the jet stream over Western Europe. Population growth in the city only happens when we build more housing stock. However, the growth in the UK population is happening, and it is something for central government to address. But it's a balancing act. A local community may want more housing, but government must put in the infrastructure to support such developments.
With the pace of population growth in the city over the last 2 decades, many feel that the accompanying infrastructure hasn't kept pace, with a lack of doctors, dentists, hospital beds, leisure facilities, etc. What would your party do to ensure that A, these deficits are rectified, and B, future development won't see a repeat of this situation?
Well, firstly, I think I'd like to add to your list. I'd like to add more policing, more prisons, and more court time. And then coming back to the question itself, I think yes, there's been considerable housing development in the city. Many new blocks of flats have been built, such as Fletton Quays, and there appears to be pressure to sell assets for redevelopment. But can our infrastructure cope with this? Many people report, unpleasant odours emanating from the sewers around Boulevard near the TK Maxx building. Could this be a sign that we've reached capacity for redevelopment in the city centre? I think other issues that include new housing estates where, original plans, including building doctor surgeries, the dental practices and pharmacies, etc. There are instances where these have simply been cancelled by the developer or not completely added. So the British Sugar Estate is a good example. I think only the doctor surgery was developed, but no dental practice went in. Another development that I could give you an example on, the Guildhouse development with flats, has had no GP surgery built. But there's obviously a lot of, there are a lot of flats there. So there are other examples locally with no increase in health provision and capacity. But with the Reform UK administration, we would ensure that there is no cherry picking by developers. Such vital facilities like that, we need to be built, and we'd ensure that they would be built by the developer. Having identified Wittering as a site for future housing, I think the government has stopped the dualling of the A47, so up to the A1. So they've prevented that being converted into a dual carriageway, and they've made it. I think they've also prevented other authorities from being able to fund that, such as the regional mayor. So I think it should not be the case that the government insist on local authorities building new housing, but at the same time preventing them from building the necessary infrastructure. To me, that doesn't make sense.
Several development and redevelopment projects have long been planned but are yet to be realised. The Hilton Hotel's already been mentioned, North West Gate, a new purpose for the Guildhall, a new stadium for Peterborough United. How would your party get these projects completed whilst ensuring they genuinely benefit residents, businesses and visitors?
I think by asking the local residents what they would like during the consultation period.
Now, it's only been a short time that you've been on the council, but based on your record so far, why should voters trust you with an increased number of councillors, which might give you a leadership role going forward?
Peterborough requires a change in its administration, as the two-party system, Conservatives and now Labour, it has failed to deliver for residents. We've seen endless waste on vanity projects, such as the Hilton Hotel, etc., record levels of borrowing, debt, and debt servicing, approximately £40 million per year debt servicing at the moment, £21.7 million of which is interest payments alone, roughly £417,000 per week. And large annual increases in council tax bills, but poorer and poorer services. With Reform UK, we will prioritise the needs of our residents locally, prioritising infrastructure and services over vanity projects.
It's almost a certainty that the council will remain in overall control following this local elections. What is your party's approach to coalition or cross-party working going forward?
It's something to consider if and when it arrives, but we are prepared to talk to any councillors for the benefit of Peterborough.
Now, if Reform wins a significant number of seats, many of your councillors could potentially be completely new to local government. How is the party going to ensure competence, stability and good governance on the council?
Well, we will ensure that proper training is given to new councillors. So there are training courses, I believe, that are being planned for councillors after May the 7th. There are things that I'm going on. Local Government Association is certainly running a course in May. So we will ensure that people receive the training and the support that they require. And we do have some councillors and ex-councillors who can help with that.
Do you accept that there is the potential risk that inexperience could result in poor decision-making?
No, I don't think so, because we will follow the principles of good governance, and people that we will put into leadership roles will have that necessary support and training. So no, I don't think that at all. And I think if you compare, if you look at what we've got at the moment and previous administrations, can't get much worse, to be honest.
You've been in the role for a little over a month at this point. Has it been what you expected it to be?
On the whole, yes, I think so, yes.
Do you feel that you were well prepared by the party for the role before being elected?
I've certainly been well supported in the election, and I've had help from various councillors and people on our branch committee to successfully stand on the issues that affect that are of interest to local residents. But all councils operate slightly differently, and obviously it's a learning experience when you start out learning how a particular council operates, and that's something you can only get by personal experience.
The Reform, as a relatively new party, has faced questions nationally about candidate vetting, with a number of instances where candidates have been selected only to be dropped soon after, as previous social media statements have emerged. How confident are you that the candidates in Peterborough meet the standards of expected of a councillor?
Well, my understanding is the vetting processes are much better, much improved. So I would expect every candidate has been properly vetted, including their social media profiles being looked at. So I don't envisage any issues coming to light.
Reform UK often campaigns on transparency and challenging the establishment. What specific changes would you introduce to how the council operates?
Consulting, I think consulting residents, getting their opinions, listening to them, is and scrutinising things, cutting down on corporate style investments where things that become less transparent because they're hidden behind sort of privacy type issues. So I think if we avoid the vanity projects, we're then avoiding the corporate projects. Everything then should be in the public domain, and it should be possible to scrutinise things and to hold people to account.
Reform UK campaigns heavily on immigration issues nationally. What council-controlled policies would your party pursue locally that relate to that specific issue?
Around immigration, so I think we'd be looking at, if we're talking about what some people call illegal migrants or asylum seekers, housing them locally, how that might be done, and looking around things like HMOs, houses of multiple occupancy. I know there are no restrictions for that at the moment because I think there's a thing called Article 4 wasn't renewed, so that might be something that we could look at. But yes, there can be issues around antisocial behaviour, fly tipping, graffiti, things like that. These are issues that are certainly coming to light in Fletton and Woodston, so it's something to look at.
Peterborough is a diverse city. How would Reform UK ensure that it can represent all communities and avoid any worsening division?
Well, I think we've already touched upon one issue, which is the Hindu temple. So I think obviously that there's only one Hindu temple, so I would like to see that remaining in place if possible, and certainly not closing. So that would be a good example of where we would support. Offer support to parts of the community.
What would you say to residents who feel that some of Reform's rhetoric is polarising?
I would say look at the state of the services that we're getting, and we need change. But the only way we're going to get that is if politicians stand up and talk about these issues. Now, these issues might be polarising, but they exist, and we shouldn't be sweeping things under the carpet and pretending that they're not.
How much of this local election do you think will be about local issues, and how much will be about national and international issues?
Oh, well, that's a good question. It depends on the party. Really, standing as a ward councillor, you should be standing about local issues. And certainly with Reform UK, that's what we will be standing for. But I can't speak for the other parties.
Reform, until your own victory last month, had barely registered in local elections in Peterborough, with the best result being 7% in Paston and Walton. With the rise in the national polls, are people voting for Nigel Farage when they vote for Reform, or are they voting for their local candidate?
Well, Nigel and the leaders of Reform UK, set the policies. But as candidates for Reform UK, we are like representatives of the party, and we stand on those very same principles. So it makes If you're voting for Reform UK locally, you're voting for your local candidate who's standing on those issues. Please read the leaflets that we supply. These tell you the issues, both national and local. And there's obviously overlap between national and local issues.
What does a good result for Reform look like in Peterborough this year?
Well, the best result, of course, would be winning every single seat. But increasing the number of seats would be a good result, but it's proportionate to the number that we get. So I'm hoping for many of those, if not all of those seats.
My final question is this. If listeners have a Reform UK party candidate in their ward in May, why should they vote for them?
Well, I mean, it's for the issues we've been touching upon in this interview. People are not getting the services that they're paying for, but council taxes are going up. We've got increasing levels of crime. I can give you some statistics. Overall levels of crime in Peterborough that since in the year ending September to 2025 have increased by 1%. Violence against the person is up by +4%. Violence with injury is up +4%. Violence without injury up 2%. Stalking and harassment is up 9%. Sexual offences in Peterborough have increased by 8%. Non-residential burglary is up 2%. Shoplifting in the city is up 10%. Criminal damage and arson up 1%. Drug offences are up 18%, and weapon offences are up 21%. Miscellaneous crimes, in fact, are also up 18%. And these figures have come from the Office for National Statistics, which is available on the ONS website if anybody wants to have a look at that. So, I mean, really, these sorts of stats speak for themselves, really. And I think Reform UK, we're all about honest politics. So we don't intend to sweep these sorts of statistics under the carpet for political convenience. We'd like to see the level of these crimes falling in these categories and for Peterborough to be a safer place. So with the Reform UK councillor, that's what you're going to get, somebody taking up the mantle to improve these things.
Councillor O'Neil, thank you for joining me on the Politics of Peterborough.
Thank you very much.